Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Applying Military Special Concepts, Operation Concepts to Grow Your Business and Career. Today's webinar is sponsored by the Georgetown University Alumni Association and Alumni Career Services. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Emily White, and I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Career Services here at Georgetown. And our presenter today is Chad Storley, who received his MBA here in 2002. Today's webinar has been very well received by both our veteran and alumni community. We had over 200 registrants that are joining us today, so I'm thrilled that all of you have been able to take advantage of this great opportunity. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips and reminders. Today's webinar is being recorded. You can access the replay of this webinar within 24 hours on our YouTube channel. There are two audio options. You can listen via your computer speakers or dial into the conference bridge number provided. Participants are not required to have a headset, but you are welcome to use one. It is important to note if you experience audio difficulties while listening via your computer speakers, this can be caused by having multiple software applications open. Feel free to close some of these applications or simply join us using the conference bridge number provided in your reminder email. Questions are welcome. Please type in your questions in the question area on your GoToWebinar control panel screen. Chad is planning to answer as many questions as time will allow during the Q&A component of today's webinar. We will email out a PDF copy of the slides from today's webinar. If you're having any technical difficulties, please submit those concerns to me via the chat area if possible. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter today. Chad Storley has had a distinguished career in both military and civilian service. Chad is a retired U.S. Army Reserve Special Force officer with over 20 years of service in infantry, special forces, and joint headquarters units. He has served in Iraq, Bosnia, Korea, and throughout the United States. Chad has been awarded the Bronze Star, the Combat Infantry Badge, and the Service Medal with Special Forces tab and the Ranger tab. Chad is a mid-level marketing executive and has worked in marketing and sales roles for various companies, including General Electric, Comcast, and Manguistics. In his spare time, Chad has taught marketing at Creighton University, developed combat analytics, and also has written articles that have been published in Harvard Business Review blog, Oxford Leadership Journal, and several military journals. Chad holds a BA from Northwestern University and an MBA from Georgetown University. Chad has also authored 2 books, Combat Leader to Corporate Leader, 20 Lessons to Advance Your Civilian Career, and Battlefield to Business Success, Applying Military Leadership Skills in Your Career. We're so thrilled to have Chad with us today and to share his expertise and time, so I want to thank him in advance and now turn it over to him.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Think Like a Green Beret and a Navy SEAL, applying military special operations concepts to grow your business and your career. I just wanted to walk through how I arrived at a lot of these concepts. And really what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a bit of introduction about what is special operations, and then we're immediately going to dive in and give you 5 takeaways for how you can apply special operations concepts in your business and in your career progression. So I came at this the special operations community through the Army. I again got my undergrad through Northwestern, and then my MBA from Georgetown University in 2002 through the McDonough School of Business. And then I started as an infantry officer, and then entered the Special Forces community as a team leader, and did a lot of different deployments and units through my career, primarily to Iraq and Bosnia. My marketing experience was all in Manugistics, General Electric, and Comcast, and then I authored 2 books, Battlefield to Business Success and Combat Leader to Corporate Leader. And as I was writing the books, I came up with the concept of that there's a lot of techniques that make special operations forces successful, that can make businesses successful and make people successful in their career. So really, that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to talk about what are special operations forces, how do special operations forces and the people that make up these units become special. And then we're going to look at 5 lessons using reconnaissance, commander's intent, wargaming, a concept for creating backup plans that I call PACE, and then using the after-action review or the debrief concept as it's known in the Navy and the Air Force. And we'll talk about these a lot more, so if you don't recognize them immediately, we'll get to them. But all of these are designed to show how do we take special operations techniques and then translate them and apply them and put them into business and career use to really give people much better business results and then a much more successful career. So when we talk about Special Operations Forces or SOF as they're primarily known, there's a bunch that come to mind. First of all, there's the Navy Special Warfare community, the most famous part of this being the SEAL community, and there's a new movie that is out right now called Active Valor that's getting very good reviews about the Navy SEALs and the other parts of Naval Special Warfare. The SEALs are just one of the most well-known. There's also units that operate mini-subs and boats to deliver the SEALs to their objective areas. So while the SEALs are the most famous, the Naval Special Warfare community is actually quite large. Then there's the Army Special Operations Forces, and this is a picture of Army Green Berets, or the Army Special Forces, of which I was a part of operating in Afghanistan. So they'll use anything from helicopters to horses to get in. But Army Special Operations is much larger. There's people that do civil affairs, other types of psychological operations. There's of course the Army Rangers, and then a helicopter unit that do some fantastic flying. Air Force Special Operations, it has the most equipment, where they have both fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters. Plus, they have some incredibly talented individuals that can operate airstrips at remote locations, and plus do a lot of other things to deliver supplies and equipment. And then they have the Air Force PJs, which go out and rescue downed aviators, an incredibly talented group. And the newest members of the Special Operations community are the Marines, or the MARSOC forces. They've done incredible things in a short amount of time, both in Iraq and Afghanistan, and have a wide range of talent. But the SEALs, the Green Berets, the PJs, and the MARSOC forces are really just the tip of the spear when it comes to it. There's logistics, communications, intelligence people that really help make Special Operations Forces as successful as they are, and they play a great role. And there's a lot of women and other people that are involved to do this. Now, to the size of Special Operations, while it has a lot of attention in the press, it's actually fewer than 60,000 people, and it's about 4% of the entire U.S. military, both active and reserve. So it has a large role in the defense of the country, but the actual size of the force is very, very small. And how Special Operations gets their name as special, it's this special selection, special training, and special equipment and mission that actually makes them unique. And we'll talk about some more of what makes them special as we go on. So how a special operator becomes special? The first part is that there's an assessment and selection, and you have a scene here of in the pool, which is the Navy SEAL drown proofing, that the Air Force PJs and combat controllers, and then the Army Special Forces that are combat diver qualified, will all go through a very, very similar thing. And then here, carrying their rucksacks with other pieces of equipment, and then with those pipes across their back, that's a picture of the Army Green Beret Special Forces Assessment and Selection. There's a lot of physical challenges to this training, but even more than the physical challenges, there are the mental challenges of doing a lot of sleep deprivation, a lot of extreme physical activity, and then a lot of really demanding combinations of operational requirements and physical requirements to really test people to make sure that they perform at their utmost. Then you have the follow-on training where for the pilots, they learn to do a lot of helicopter operations, both flying in the day and flying in the night, plus they do mid-air refueling of helicopters, which is a rather unstandard performance, and that's both the Army and the Air Force's helicopter pilots. And then finally, once they're through all this training, then they go through in being employed around the world, and of course in combat situations in Iraq and Afghanistan and other parts of the world. Now, pretty much as a rule, all of these pipelines have about a 10 to a 20% completion rate from start to finish. So where you'll see the absolute best people that the force has to offer to start this training at the beginning. Once you're at the end, you're somewhere down between 10 and 20% that have made it through and not quit. So the people that do this are truly unique and truly skilled. But as we go through this and look at it, we want to really look at this operator and this person about what they do in it. While it's very easy to get caught up in the equipment is neat, they go to exotic locations, and they do difficult things, it's really this person and what's in their head. That's what is really the value for business and for taking it away for your career, is how do we get inside this person's head and understand how they lead, how they plan, and how they do their actions, because that's really where the benefit is about what you can take away from today and to help with your business results and with your career progression. So we're going to start looking at now, talking about how do we understand a lot of the different planning and leadership skills that make these forces truly unique and successful to get to where we can understand, translate, and apply these skills into business and career progression. So the first part, when we look at it for the leadership and personal characteristics of special operations for the people, is that to a rule they focus on world-class performance. One of the overriding things that they would say during Special Forces training and Special Forces selection is to do your best. Go out and do your best. There was never a standard you have to run 5 miles in 30 minutes. It was always to do your best. And that the focus on doing your best drives you to world-class performance, because you're not worried about, well, if I just run it in 32 minutes and that'll be good enough. It's no, you go out and take every task that you do every day and every mission and do your best at it. And that really, really helps bring a cohesive organization together. The next unique part about these people is that they can both operate very well individually, and they can also operate as a team, which is unique in that there's focus on both individual performance and team performance. We're going to talk about at the end what's termed the after-action review, or the AAR, or the debrief process. And the debrief process and the AAR really look at what you do well, what didn't you do well, and how can you do better in the future. This concept of constantly performing to your best, but then stopping and re-examining your performance to look at how can I keep what I did well, but how can I improve what didn't go well, and how can we identify it? And I think that is one of the lessons that you can start implementing in your business or your career today. In the next time you have a new product launch, you open a new store, introduce a new product, or talk to your customer, it's like, what are we doing well, and what can we do better in the future, and then let's figure out a plan to do it. And so this constant focus on improvement, I think, really helps establish an individual that's very humble. Well, it seems that these men and women can do all these great things. They're incredibly physically fit. They're challenged a lot of times beyond what most people think that they can even accomplish. They still are able to regulate their stress levels and have a sense of humility. And that is, I think, very unique because since they're always focused on improving their performance and doing the best that they can, this really helps drive an individual that's very humble. And one of the unique things too, and this we won't talk about, but that you can take away, is that the concept of teaching a lot of time in business is lost. We talk about revenue, we talk about profitability, we talk about big deals and creating innovative products, which are all absolutely essential for success. But a lot of times we miss the fact that we have a responsibility to train and coach and mentor those other employees that are in the business with us or that are coming into the business. And this concept of that a special operator is an absolute professional and good at what they do, but they're always focused on how can I teach the person coming behind me how to do things better, or how can I, in fact, learn something from somebody else. So they hold simultaneously the concept of I can do this well, but yet I'm going to still go out there and teach people how to do it. The final part is, and one of the things that I enjoyed the most, that again I think helps with this focus of humility, is that once a mission is done, that mission is they do an after-action review or a debrief on it, learn what they need to learn, what they need to do better, and what they did well, and then they let that go, and then they start immediately focusing on the next mission. How can we improve? How can we be better? How can we train? So there's very little war storytelling about what you did. It's a focus on what you will do for the organization in the future. The first part that we'll look about is when special operators think about problem solving, they think about it in 4 primary components: this understand, plan, execute, and improve. And it's a continuum, and the first thing that they do is they want to understand what's the area that we're going to be operating in, who are we going to be with, what resources are available, and what's everything that we have. So there's a lot of focus. The focus immediately is not just on action, it's really understanding how do we understand where we're going to. If we're going to Afghanistan, what's the language, what's the terrain like, what's the weather, who are the people that we're going to be with, do they like it? And then once they have a good understanding, then they start going into the planning process. How can we accomplish our mission? How can we try to anticipate what the enemy will do, what problems we'll have, how do we put preventive measures in? When that's all done, then they go to the execution, where they actually conduct the mission to its successful completion. And a lot of time, too, for special operators, there's a tendency to think it's always combat. It's always shooting, dropping bombs. But in fact, a lot of the really more successful operations that special operations have done have been with peacekeeping. I mean, one of the most important missions I did when I was in Iraq is I brought in one of the first major mobile civilian hospitals into Iraq about 3 days after the invasion had happened. So even though there was a combat operation still going on, there was always a focus on the population, going back to the understanding who the people that you're there to serve, how can we help them immediately. And then when you've gone through the planning process and executed your mission, then you're focused on, again, on this improving. How do we train better? How do we train differently? How do we understand what we need to do, and how do we create a plan to improvement? And then with the next mission, it starts again, and you go back through that continuum. And so today we're going to look at some of the primary things that we'll do. We'll talk about reconnaissance, which is a key part of understanding. And then we'll look at 3 different areas for planning. We'll look at commander's intent, wargaming, and this concept called PACE. And I'll explain these in a minute. And all of these are meant to do is to help you come up with a very, very robust plan that will be executed successfully. And then in improving, we'll talk about the after-action review, and we'll run through that. And for each of these, we're going to talk about a historical example. We'll run through the tool, how you use it in business, and then at the end, we'll look at how do you use these tools for your own career. So at the end of this, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about reconnaissance, commander's intent, wargaming, PACE, and the after-action concept in both a business context and a career context, so you understand how to use both the different tools in your business and in your career. And really the goal is what we're going to do is when you leave this presentation today, as Emily said, they'll send you out a link to the audio and the video, and then you'll have a PDF copy of the slides, so you'll know how to put these tools into effect. So it's really, really meant to, in an hour, to help make you a better business person and more successful in your career. So the first thing that we'll talk about, and one thing too as we go through this, please start thinking of questions or send those questions in to Emily, and we're going to talk through and answer as many as we can when we're at the end. So one of the first missions that the SEALs did in Afghanistan was they did a reconnaissance on an airfield that was really, really critical to helping secure the country. And this was back in late 2001, so right after September 11, there was an airfield down in the southeastern part of Afghanistan that they needed to do. So the SEALs went in, they understood what they needed to do as far as helping understand. They created a plan. They needed to take so much equipment, so much food, so they could do observation on this airfield, and it was critically important because there was going to be an airborne force similar. That's a static line or a standard parachute. A force was going to come in after them, and they had to make sure it was secure for them. So the SEALs were executing their operation. They'd been there about 5 days, which was how long they'd planned for their mission. And then they were told, oh, no, you're going to have to be there for up to another 5 days. So the SEALs went through. They extended their supplies. So they were eating about every other day, and they really made it successful. But this whole concept of reconnaissance, about understanding the environment that you're going into, and that is what really made the follow-on airborne operation successful, because they were able to make sure that everything was safe and secure for this follow-on force to come in. So this reconnaissance, about going out and looking at the environment, looking at the business setting, is very important for making sure that something can be successful. So this is a definition of reconnaissance. You're looking at obtaining information about both the resources of the enemy or to secure an environmental area. And when you talk about a plan from a military standpoint, it's both the enemy, the terrain, and the population to be there. So when you think about for a business, when you're going about doing a reconnaissance, a lot of times we'll do market research on who our customers are or who we intend our customers to be. We'll look at our competition, which is really going to be important too. But then we also have to look more at the society. How will this either this product or service be used? Who will buy it initially? Who will buy it in the future? And that's really a lot about what reconnaissance intends to do. It's to give everyone a common, complete understanding of where the mission is going to take place, so you can make sure that you plan your resources and what you need to do to be successful. So any good mission starts with a very complete reconnaissance to make sure that you understand everything that's going on to be successful. So when we look at this concept of conducting what I'll term a commercial reconnaissance, the first thing too is you look at the top 3 to 4 things that you want to know. And this is really, really important for reconnaissance, because a lot of times if you put 20 business leaders in a room, they're each going to come up with 3 or 4 things that are most important to them. So what you want to do with this is have, as a group, decide and understand what are the 3 to 4 most important things that we want to be answered for our business. And then once you've done that, then you start looking at indicators. And it could be sales information if you sell products that are sold in grocery stores. There's SKU tracking and other things that you can see. And then you want a time to get with people. So you want to both use data with the indicators in the second bullet, but then you also want to make sure you're spending time to talk to people. One of the most successful operations that Green Berets performed during the peace process in Bosnia, which was in the mid to late 1990s, was they went out on a regular basis and they talked to mayors, they talked to chief of police. How are things going? Are there any problems? So there was no data to really support a lot of what the peace process was doing. So special forces were out in the community actually talking to people. What do you need? Where are the problems? And they did this on a daily basis, and it really helped bring a lot of flavor to how successful the peacekeeping forces were. Then, of course, there's a lot of literature out there that you can read, and then some other types of metrics. So when you have all this commercial information together, then you want to communicate it to the entire team. And that, I think, one of the key parts of the military intelligence process is that there's a regular communication to everybody, so everybody has a complete picture of what's going on with both what we'll call the market, or the terrain and the population of where the military force is going to be operating, and what the competition or the enemy is doing. So everyone has the same picture. And that, I think, a lot of times when you ask business leaders what their top 3 competitive issues are, you may have agreement on the first one, but on the second and third ones, you'll have very, very large differences of opinion. And so that's what the military reconnaissance process tries to do, is to get down and say, hey, for our entire team, this is what's most important. And then you want to put together both some of your qualitative things, those items that you get from discussing with the customers and with the sales force, and then some of your different quantitative measures that you can get either through some industry-supplied metrics, or you may have some different quantitative processes of your own, some of your business analytics. And then you do this on a regular basis, if it's going to be weekly, if it's going to be monthly, because then you have everyone on the team understanding what the competitive environment is and everyone getting the same information. And this is really what makes the military reconnaissance process so good, is that when the entire team sees the same competitive landscape, then the entire team can work together to accomplish the mission and solve the problem. When everybody sees the competition differently or sees it incompletely, then there's not a full understanding of why we need to do the mission and what needs to be accomplished. So getting this concept of commercial reconnaissance out, getting everybody to be able to see it, bringing in both data and other types of qualitative concerns, doing it regularly is really helps bring the entire team together and focus everybody for a successful mission. The one part I also want to highlight too is that there's a lot of other things that you can do unethically with, monitoring cell phone calls, digging through people's trash. You really want to use the Wall Street Journal test to make sure that anything that you do could be on the front page of the Journal or the New York Times, and to make sure that that stays within both ethical collection practices and then also legal considerations. The next part that we're going to talk about is commander's intent. And what commander's intent is, it's a description of what success looks like for the mission. So most of us are used for business plans, what we need to do when to make the plan successful, but commander's intent focuses on what success looks like. And so during World War II, right before the Normandy invasion on June 6, 1944, there was a number of both parachute and glider forces that were dropped into northern France to help confuse the Nazi German occupying forces that there was a ground invasion coming. And so as they went through this planning, they all were saying, hey, we have to attack these military positions, we have to seize these road and rail crossings in order to be successful. So when the actual mission happened, and you can kind of see this in the lower right-hand picture, there was incredible confusion on this mission. They dropped people in the wrong location. Military units that traditionally operate with everyone together were all confused. So imagine if people from General Electric, Siemens, and Wells Fargo Bank had to get together to accomplish a mission. It would be very confusing. Well, so at the early morning when you looked at this mission, everything looked like it had been a huge failure. You had people dropped in the wrong location. The units were scattered. A lot of units didn't get all the equipment that they needed. But then when you looked at the situation in just 24 hours later, on June 7th, these airborne forces had seized the road crossings. They had captured a lot of the key road and bridge equipment, and they were starting to defeat the enemy even as the invasion forces were coming in from the sea. So how did they get that turnaround? They got the turnaround because everybody understood what success looked like. And so commander's intent, and this is from General Stanley McChrystal, who was one of the former commanders in Afghanistan, and he was also an Army Green Beret. He's talking about what does winning and success look like. And when you get this presentation, there's a video link at the end where he talks about commander's intent in business. But it's this idea of clearly expressing your vision of an end result. And that end result is, so you understand, hey, the idea of our process, or what we're trying to do, is we're trying to grow market share. So we want to bring on more customers, or our goal of this process is that we want to improve the quality of this product by 15 to 20%. So it's making sure everybody understands what success is and how we define success. And then you worry a little bit later about what you want the mission to do. And so when you look at commander's intent in business, you're looking at using things like price. It could be a rate. It could be how much revenue you want, your customer service scores or customer satisfaction scores. If the goal is to develop a long-term relationship with a specific customer, a group of customers, or improve operating efficiency. You're focused on trying to define the success and why this is important for the company. The concept is, for commander's intent, that if everybody understands what we're trying to achieve, how that success is defined, and why it's important for the company, then as the business plan has to adapt, because this business plan is going to be, the competitors are going to be out there, customers are going to change their minds, some suppliers may not have all the pieces and parts that we need. If everybody can understand what success is, then as these other changes to the plan happen, everyone can quickly adapt to make sure that we achieve the success and understand why it's important for the company. So commander's intent fully recognizes that the battlefield, just like the business environment, is chaotic and plans are only so good. Plans will only get you so far. But if you can change and adapt what you're doing to stay ahead or stay even with a lot of these changes, you can still accomplish everything on your mission. So commander's intent, I think, is huge. And at the end of this presentation, too, there's a couple of links for an Oxford Leadership Journal and some Harvard Business Review blogs that I did where I talked about the business use of commander's intent that I think is really valuable. The next concept is wargaming. And wargaming is, if you think about it for checkers, a lot of people who play a lot of checkers, a lot of chess, or some of these different board games will see that they understand where they are, but then they'll run through, if I move the piece on the board here, this is what my competitor will do. So they're trying to see 2, 3, 4 moves ahead. And this is similar to what we do when we have a military plan, is that we'll take the military plan and then we'll run it against, all right, if I land my airborne forces like they do in World War II, if I parachute forces into northern France, then I can expect that inside Germany across the Rhine River, they'll start trying to put reinforcements on a train and send that across the Rhine. So then what that tells me with my wargaming is that I need to go ahead and try to bomb the bridges, the rail bridges over the Rhine, which they did during the invasion, to make sure that that doesn't happen. So with wargaming, you're trying to put your enemy actions or your competitor's actions against the plan to make sure it's successful. So really what wargame is trying to accomplish is, have you fully anticipated how the competition will react when you execute your plan? And so what this wargaming does is you're trying to take your best initial plan and then anticipate what the competition or what customers will do when you do that, so you can modify and adapt your plan. So it's when you look at commercial wargaming, you're looking at, how do I come up with my best plan, and then talk about who are the people that I need. So if let's say I'm going to open a new store, I'm going to want the workers are going to be there, the advertising department, people doing marketing, some of the people that I'm doing that'll be training the sales force, and then we'll look at dividing it into some of the phases. So we'll have the store opening, preparing the store for opening, the opening week, the 3 months after the opening, and then beyond 3 months. And then what you'll do is, then when you conduct the war game, you'll identify an independent group of people to play the competitors. So let's say I'm going to open a new sandwich shop, and that there's a McDonald's that's close by. So I'm going to open a sandwich shop. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll understand, okay, what specials is McDonald's offering? Okay, maybe I'll offer a free soda and chips with the sandwich. So I'll try, let's see, I'll try to start figuring out ways that I can try to undo or lessen the impact of the McDonald's value meal. So I'll write that into my plan. The first 3 months of opening, I'm going to have this special. So what this does is when you go through a complete process of wargaming, you've taken your very best plan, you've tested it against what your competition will do and what you think your customers will want, and then you'll write those changes into your plan so that when you do your business plan rollout, you've fully anticipated and tested everything against what you expect your competition and your customers will do or will want. And this does not have to be any extensive computer simulation. It can be a few people sitting around a table. And then as long as there's a systematic process and you fully capture a lot of these good ideas that come out when you start testing products and services against your competition and what you expect them to do, then you'll have really enjoyed a lot of the benefits of wargaming. So the next part is for special ops planning, and a key part of this is when they were doing the raid to go get Osama bin Laden. They were planning to do this concept of what's called fast roping, and you can see the guys here. A fast rope is essentially a big gym rope, and they do this anywhere from 15 to 90 feet in the air where a helicopter comes over and hovers. They throw out these big gym ropes, and then people slide down them. And that was their initial concept for the bin Laden raid. But then what happens is, boom, your helicopter crash lands. So you can no longer do this fast roping. You have to quickly adapt and understand. And this is where the concept of PACE comes in. And PACE stands for primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. And the purpose of PACE is, so when the forces to get bin Laden, they were going to fast rope, and now, boom, their helicopter crashes. What do? They instantly have already thought through, if my primary plan doesn't work, then I'm going to my alternate. And so what PACE does is PACE anticipates reasons for possible failure and then designs contingency plans around them. And for PACE, you try to identify a primary way and then 3 backups to make sure that you're successful. So with PACE, you start with your most important plan. You get that good plan down, you run it through a war game, make sure it's your best, and then you start to what if. All right, so I'm gonna do my store opening, and I identify through the wargaming process that I need to have something to defeat the value meal. So I'm going to offer a free chips and soda with that. Okay, well then I'll go through, and then when I start thinking my alternate planning, what if McDonald's offers a discount on their value meal? What do? Okay, so my alternate way is I'm going to offer a value punch card or something like that. So someone goes there 8 to 10 times, now I'm giving them a free lunch meal. So what PACE does is you ultimately want to be successful. And then you start using PACE to identify for those critical things to make sure that you're successful. So what PACE really wants to do is to help you create options. And if you can create options, you can stay in control of the situation. And so when the force that was getting bin Laden, helicopter crash lands, nobody panics, everybody knows what to do because they've used this concept of creating options so they can instantly react and go on and be successful. The final skill that we're going to talk about is the after-action review. And what the after-action review is meant to address is when an operation is done. It could be an attack, or it could be you're delivering humanitarian aid. What went well, what didn't go well, and how do we improve? And so when you talk about the steps in the AAR, first of all, you establish an environment for review and introspection. It starts with respect. So what you'll see in a lot of special operations units when they do an after-action review is everybody's going to remove their jackets. So everybody goes in there with the Air Force terms nameless and rankless. So we're going to start with, we want to improve things. What are we going to do? And so we take off our jackets, because that means that there's no rank. We're all equal, and we're going to go about trying to identify the problems and improve things. Then you look at talking about just trying to develop the operation into phases. So you can use this is where we're doing our planning, and then we did our execution, and then we drove out of the objective areas. So you try to divide it, because that just helps you for the planning phase, what went well, what didn't go well. When we were moving to the city where we were going to do our operation, what went well, what didn't go well. And then you look at identifying strengths, weaknesses, and recommendation for improvement. This is I think this step 3 is really the critical strength of the after-action review, or AAR, because you're looking at what worked, what didn't work, and now more importantly, and this is the most important part, is how do we fix what didn't work? Because when you can fix what didn't work, you can get to step 4 and create an action plan. And that's really I think the very valuable part for business is when you create a plan for improvement, now you're starting to get into a continuous learning process. So you're looking at, hey, this didn't work, this is going to be my plan, and this is how I'm going to fix things. Very, very critical to make the AAR effective. So when you look at taking these special operations principles out into your career planning, for your reconnaissance, absolutely the best way is to network. If you're looking at improving your skill sets, I want to be the very best that I can be in retail advertising. Key part of that is you're going to have to go out and find who are the experts in retail advertising. How do I get to know them? How do I establish a relationship? It may be to move to a different company, or it could be to just become more of an industry expert. For commander's intent, a great way to do that is you describe your perfect position to your family and friends. Hey, this is what my best job looks like, and you help do that. Because when you can describe it to your friends and to your family, it is now real, and everyone else is there going to help you. And then when you're there, things may change. A company may work, a company may not work, but you can more easily and quickly adapt. Wargaming, I think, wargaming for interview preparation is flawless, because when you start going, well, what if they ask me this, or what's an example of how I increase customer satisfaction, really, really helps people get going. For pace, when you're doing career planning, you can start looking at, well, what if I can't stay in this job, or are there any vulnerabilities in my company or my career? One of the things that I talk to veterans about is this concept of checkerboard career planning. For people that come out of the military, they're really used to like what we call stair-step promotions. I'm here, and then I go up, and then I'm here, and I go up. So a lot of military people think that if I can't advance vertically, then my career is stalled. And what checkerboarding career planning is, sometimes you have to go lateral, sometimes you have to go down, and then you can go up.
So when you look at, sometimes I may have to take a step down into a promotion to get some experience, meet some new people, and then I can progress up. So PACE is really helpful for that because it helps people not think of promotion in vertical only framework. Then they can start thinking of going horizontally, going down, and going up. And then the after action review, I think for me when I used it extensively was after I'd done an interview or I'd presented at a conference. Hey, what did I do well? Did I do enough to network? Did I do enough to meet people? Did I do enough to listen? How is my follow-up? Oh, I need to be better at my follow-up. I'm going to start carrying a note card with me. So as I talk to people, I can schedule some quick notes and go on. So you understand the concepts now of reconnaissance, commander's intent, wargaming, PACE, and after action. So there's a lot of different ways that you can frame that into your career. And here's another list that is more provided for you to read of just different military skill sets and how they can be for commercial use. We've only talked a few today with reconnaissance and PACE and the after action review. There's a lot out there that you can learn of. So next time you're going to watch Active Valor, you're reading some military history, think about how can I translate this and use this in my business and my career. And that's the key part of what we've talked about today. It's this understanding, translating, and applying these military skill sets that will make you competitive. There's the skills that we talk about for the after action review, performance coaching, how to coach and mentor individuals. A lot of these skills aren't discussed enough in business education or by businesses. But if you can do this, if you can get out there in your company and understand, hey, this is how we can look at our competition or the marketplace that we sell our products and services at consistently and uniquely, and this is how we get the word out to everybody in the business. Hey, for this business plan, Mr. Or Mrs. CEO, what do we need? How do we define success? Let's help our sales force and tell them, hey, this is where we want to be. So as the business plan changes and adapts, they can more quickly get out there and help sell our products and services. Once you start doing these things, it's going to enormously help your returns for your company. And if it helps your returns for your company, it's going to help your career. Also, in your this is my website, combat2corporate.com. So you can see my books, the news, my blog, and then there's also a free resources tab up in the upper right-hand corner where you can go to, and there's videos, podcasts, and downloadable material. So lots of resources for you to get out there between my books and the free resources to find more about how you can translate and adapt military skill sets to business. And this is my contact information, and then this is all on my website too, along with my Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook contacts. And that is all I have. If we have some time for questions.
Sure, we have about 5 minutes for questions. I'll start with the first one we've received for you, Chad. Can you think of any CEOs that you're aware of that have military special operations experience?
You know, one that comes immediately to mind is Alex Gorski, who's the new CEO of Johnson & Johnson. He was a infantry officer that was educated with Ranger skills, and Ranger skills are a lot of really fast, hard-hitting attacks. It requires extreme levels of fitness to be a member of that. But one of the lessons that Alex Gorski took away from the military was this concept of performance coaching, and he's been known throughout his career as a mentor. And he has, even when he left Johnson & Johnson for a while to go to another company, even when he was at that other company, he was still mentoring people back in Johnson & Johnson how they could be better and improve their performance. So this whole idea of coaching and performance, and that's really giving feedback. You're focusing on improvement, a lot of these core special operations leadership characteristics. He was still doing that for the people at the company that he left. So I think that there's very few better business examples of professional mentoring and coaching than what Gorski did.
Great, thank you. Chad, we have a couple other questions we've gotten. Every step of the process you described demands great organizational skills. Are these skills that are part of the special ops training that you've received, and do you have any insights into this aspect of conducting a successful mission?
One of the skills, and this is in my Combat Leader to Corporate Leader book, is I laid out basically these worksheets that are in the book that you can duplicate. So when you're going through the after action review, it has places for you can fill in who are the people that are attending, what's the phase that we're doing, what worked well, what didn't work well, and what's our plan. And so for after action review, for the performance coaching, there's a risk management section. And so the special operations really preaches simplicity and redundancy, and one of the ways that we do that is we use a lot of worksheets, and that's things that I put in the book. So the book's got 20 chapters, and in each chapter there's a worksheet so you can go and fill it out, which for me, especially as hectic as business is, that using worksheets is really helpful, because when you're done with the after action review, your worksheet's filled out, you can give everybody a copy, everybody knows what the plan is, and you're done.
Great, thank you so much. A couple other questions. Chad, how do you deal with subordinates or colleagues who seem to have a different agenda than the one that you're trying to execute?
One of the, I think that the using commander's intent, I think, is particularly helpful, because when you get, and this is I guess one of those leading up skills that you can now use, but when you lead up and you get either your business team leader, the person in charge of your business unit, or your CEO, to enunciate, this is what success is, and this is what I want everyone to focus on, it does amazing things when that's public. And that's one of the great things about commander's intent, is that it defines for the entire organization what success is and what helps people. So a great way to shine a light on people that aren't team players is you get everyone in the organization to know this is what the leader defines success as. And I think that really helps bring a lot of people that may be reluctant to get on board, because once the CEO states, when she comes and says, hey, this is what I want everyone to do and this is what success is, really helps bring everybody along.
Great, thank you so much. What's the best advice to motivate a group that consists of many military personnel who are complacent in what they do? This is not a private sector group, so the fear of being fired is just not there.
You know, I think a lot of times for military people with complacency, when you're talking about doing a military transition to either a civilian career or a federal government career transition, it's that there's different standards of performance, and a lot of military people lose sight of the differences between civilian culture and military culture, especially workplace culture. And so a lot of times how they adapt to that is that they become complacent. Doesn't mean that they don't have the initiative, they just don't understand, hey, what's important and what's valued here. And so I think when you have a group like that, the best way is to communicate. This is what success looks like. Let's talk about modeling behavior. Let's talk about how I want you to use your military skills for us and to help in our company. And then start having them take their military skills and experience and apply those back to what's going to help your company be successful, because now you're not going to tolerate complacency, because their complacency is no longer accepted. And so it's really in the military, how do we deal with complacency? Well, you know how we really do it? We challenge somebody. Hey, I've trained you. You're ready to go. This is what I want you to do. Go do it. Get back to me in a week. Figure it out. And I think that those things will help translate and transition that complacency into skill sets and initiative that's working for your company or your organization.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, unfortunately, this leads us at the end of today's webinar. We've gotten a lot of great comments and also folks that want to thank you for your service, Chad. I just want to remind everyone we'll be sending a follow-up email in just a few minutes with a copy of the PowerPoint slides, details on how to access the archived recording, and also a feedback survey, as we'd love to get your thoughts. Chad, I'll turn it over to you if you want to close it out.
Well, thank you. If anybody else has any questions, my email is there. So if you want to drop me an email, and I'll do my best to get back to you for a comment or a concern. But really, the best way that you can thank me is to take these skill sets and go out and make your companies and your career better. There's no better, I guess, thanks for me than to have you be successful. Thanks a lot for your time today.